Hi, everyone. My name is Sam Lima, and I'll be hosting today's presentation. So, our topic today is taking the next step on your digital transformation journey with an intelligent digital mailroom. I'll introduce our subject matter experts in a moment. They'll discuss common challenges our customers have moving their business to a more digital way of working. They'll introduce our digital mailroom solution and provide a demo as well as highlight how our customers are using that solution. Our speakers today are Jeff Deacon and Olivia Markbreiter. Jeff is Principal Sales Engineer supporting Iron Mountain's digital business unit. He provides technical leadership and guidance for the design and implementation of innovative strategies and programs to deliver digital transformation solutions to their clients. Olivia is the Director of Strategic Deals for North America and Latin America. Prior to her role at Iron Mountain, she spent over 5 years in management consulting with a focus on retail banking and mortgage. She's passionate about helping organizations harness their data. I'll kick it off for Olivia.
Thank you so much, Sam. So ultimately, I think we all know that there's a shift happening in how our organizations are handling mail. And this is not just about a question of scanning or digitization and going from physical mail coming in to digital mail. It's really about data. I think that when we look at mail, it's really about data entering an organization, whether it's claims for an insurance company or invoices or customer complaints or tax forms, whatever it is, it's really not about an envelope at the end of the day. It's about critical data and how you get it in to be processed as quickly as possible and make sure it's compliantly handled. So what we see in the market is really a transformation journey from traditional mailrooms to digital mailrooms, but ultimately to intelligent mailrooms, where you're not just going from a piece of mail to a PDF, but really being able to extract that data and use it as quickly as possible. Let's dive a little bit more into the different components when we think about the solution, why people are doing this. And I think really we see a couple drivers. I think number one is, no one really wants to be necessarily managing massive mailrooms. It can be very labor intensive, very real estate intensive, and we all have core businesses to run. So how do we make sure that we can make our mailrooms more efficient? Fewer touches to the mail, being able to process it faster. How do we make sure we don't have to have, for example, 30 mailrooms across the country? Is there a need for all of that? So for example, what we've seen in the past is historically, folks had what we called a building model, where you'd have your building, your office location, you'd have your coffee shop, and you'd have your dry cleaners, and you'd have your mailroom in the building. And so, if a company had 30 office hubs, they would have 30 different mailrooms. But this is not the model that we're seeing anymore. Folks are saying we don't necessarily need a mailroom on site. We can have all our mail go to one centralized location and then deliver it digitally to those 30 different locations. So that real estate spend and looking to consolidate has been a big driver. The third driver we're seeing is, of course, because of COVID, folks physically being unable to access their mail or go into the office to have it delivered. Really, this was an example of necessity driving innovation, where folks needed alternatives for how they could access that mail. So getting it delivered digitally through certain secure platforms and not just email, and attaching documents via email was really a driver here to say, how can we get it to all the folks in our offices and across different teams? We're also seeing a lot of focus on moving to digital mailrooms due to business disruptions and potentially even disaster recovery. If there's a hurricane or if there is some kind of disaster and we cannot access a building, how do we make sure people still get the information they need, even if we can't physically get a piece of mail to them? And then lastly, we are seeing folks just in general trying to save on inflation and at risk of inflation expenses. Labor is a huge component of traditional mailrooms. So folks are really looking for ways that they can mitigate against those rising labor costs through digital mailroom. We are seeing that, although a lot of folks are moving more towards a digital mailroom, there still is a lot of ways to go. We are seeing mail volumes that are physical decline and email and fax rise, but still the majority of mail is coming in physically. And around 60 to 70% of labor is spent actually in sorting that mail. So folks are, looking at the envelope and usually based on legacy information, having to make a judgment call of where it should go, how it should be routed, what the SLA is, what the priority is. And really that's what's causing a lot of the delays here, is that upfront sorting. Again, we do see this as a top priority for a lot of our business and IT leaders, and something that when we talk to our customers as they talk about their digital transformation, it's still one of the biggest pain points for them, where for a lot of the content that's originating within the company, a lot of it's being created digitally, but for the content coming in from external parties, a lot of it still retains its physical origins. So that question for leaders of how can we just stop the paper at the source and make sure it's digitized as soon as possible.
All right, thanks, Olivia. So transform the mailroom into a dynamic channel. What does that really mean? And first and foremost, it's about having a digital first mindset. That goes back to what we were talking about earlier in it. It means extending beyond what we know as traditional mailroom and thinking and leveraging technology in every possible way. And the second thing is that it's also about having a flexible content management platform, because that can be built around the needs and your business, right? The users and how they interact with mail. You need to address how will people use mail once it's digital. If it's currently being delivered to people's desks and people are looking at physical mail and you take that away, how do you facilitate some of those same processes that will continue to exist? So today I'm going to share what we're hearing from our customers that are talking to us about a digital mailroom transformation. So they've experienced those external pressures, those things that Olivia's been talking about, and they've come to us to have conversations about what digital mailroom is and where they'd like to go. We're going to talk to you about how we're defining digital mailroom, specifically with our customers. We'll talk about some of how it works for mailroom. And then I'd like to talk about what we've learned from our customers about the journey and the transition from traditional to digital, and how to accelerate that transformation. Next slide, please. So Olivia was talking about drivers, and the perspective she had was kind of like those external, what's happening in the outside world. But when we talk to customers who are looking and seeing that there's a problem with traditional mailroom, one of the first things we hear is this desire for digital transformation to go digital first. And Olivia said this earlier, it's not about the mail. It's not about taking the traditional mailroom and automating it or improving it. It's about the data. And it's about leveraging that data or that information as early as we can to in that what I call a transaction life cycle. A document coming into your business is a transaction. And so how do we get the data from that so that we can more efficiently resolve that transaction downstream? And then our customers are really focused on having better control and security around the data, because a lot of customers already feel like a traditional mailroom is kind of quote unquote out of control, or they're concerned about confidentiality. And so we heard about sometimes envelopes not being able to be opened, for instance. And so we try to address that when we make this digital transformation to mitigate that risk so we can move towards that digital first. By doing this, it creates questions about standards and changes in how we process. Many organizations will look at centralizing multiple locations, multiple mailrooms in the enterprise into a single hub or mailroom, single mailroom. They want to drive more consistency in processing, because in its current state, a lot of times it's like every mailroom's doing its own thing and it's hard to control. They're also looking to leverage opportunity to improve service levels, right? It's about the customer. It's about being able to, if you receive a piece of correspondence from your customer, and being able to respond to it within 24 hours rather than it might take a week currently. We also have to redefine our organization's relationship with that digital mail. I kind of spoke to that earlier. Is if you change the mail to digital, it's going to change how your employees, how the recipients interact with that mail. And again, it's about how can we access the information earlier? How can we use that data to drive downstream processing, more efficiency? And how do we get the right information in front of the right person at the right time, right? That's really what it's about. And so all of these things I've been talking about, we start thinking about compliance and security. And so we start looking at wanting to have better ways to classify material, sensitive material, non-sensitive material, claim, high claim versus an invoice has significance from a turnaround time and service levels. And this is really for both paper and digital documents. And once you establish a mailroom, one of the things that's going to happen, a digital mailroom, is you also kind of create this opportunity for an omni-channel, which means that you've got all kinds of content flowing in. Somebody mentioned a fax server, could be email. The more we become less reliant on paper, the more unstructured digital content will come into the organization. So we need to have a plan on how to address that. And I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. And the last thing, of course, is the driver for sustainability. All organizations now are faced with, literal mandates for environmental, social, and governance changes, or at least have goals in the immediate, 5 or 10 years. And there's this super focus on reducing the dependency on paper. Obviously, that's driving paper consumption, consumables and ink and printing equipment and all those things that are connected with printing, as well as postage and transportation. So there's a lot of opportunity to drive some environmental change by going to digital mailroom that organizations can claim as a benefit. And last is this focus as part of sustainability is not only just looking at the incoming, but looking at the outbound and how can we enhance outbound communication to shift from physical or paper to digital. So when we're looking at what mailroom is, I kind of break it down into 5 components, right? And there's 4 major components, and then we kind of wrap it with the security, and I'll speak to that. But the first one is kind of what I would think of, very well as traditional mailroom. It's physical handling of paper mail, and it's all of the logistics and the chain of custody and the actual, I think in this particular case, we're talking about the physical mailroom up to digitization of mail. So the scanning of mail, which enables it to be able to leverage number 2, which is that automated processing. A simple way to think about automated processing is if we digitize all the mail, we then can leverage automation. We can leverage artificial intelligence and machine learning to be able to extract data and identify documents for us, to be able to read the addresses off of envelopes. It does all the work for us. We just tell it what rules to follow. It captures the data and information, and then it makes the decision on where to route it. You'll see there's one icon in there that says human in the loop. The human doesn't go away. The human's role now, instead of making all those decisions, is to either correct the automation or to handle exceptions, but they're still in the loop from a quality assurance standpoint. And then the third is the digital platform. And think of this as how you would receive mail, how you would deal with exceptions, how mail would be delivered. And there's a lot of options here, but when I do the demo, I'm going to show you some of the environment of the platform, specifically if you were a mail user, like an attorney in the practice who may receive mail, what it might look like in their personal mailbox. But there's also the ability to support workflow where, and I kind of mentioned this earlier, where maybe there were steps taken with a document when it first comes in. Now those can be a workflow that can be measurable, has visibility, can be in reporting. You can track those transactions in the organization. And one of the most important parts of this for most of our customers is integration, the ability to be able to have a platform that can give you what you need for those individual mail users and groups that need to interact with mail or with digital mail, but also the integration, say, into SAP or into an ERP system or an accounting system for billing. It doesn't matter, but being able to deliver intelligent content, meaning here's a document. It's not just an image of a document. Here's all the data that the downstream system needs. And here is additional enhanced data, which will help to support that transaction to be processed successfully. And last is 4, which when we started out with Digital Mailroom, these additional services, many of them were already there because you know us for who we are: physical storage, destruction, secure transportation. We have information governance tied with our Policy Center product. But also, we found with many conversations with customers, they need a single source that can not only handle the mailroom, but handle outbound communication as well, and be able to process payments, like receive checks and deposit those checks on behalf of the customer. So around these 4 components is number 5, which we're calling security. And we could talk about all of the different mitigation strategies we have around security. What's important is we have one end-to-end solution, and that it's compliant with ISO 27001 and SOC 2, which are the global standards for data protection. So that's like, and we do internal audits and external certifications. And so we're talking about security, availability, process integrity, confidentiality, and privacy, all contained within those standards. Iron Mountain meets or exceeds every single one of our customers' security information policies. And it's a constant vigilance for us to make sure that we deliver products to customers that are going to exceed their own security information or information security policies as well. A lot of times when we talk to customers, they're like, oh my gosh, how do I go from A to B? Like, it doesn't happen overnight. At least we've learned from working with our customers that the most successful implementations kind of follow this curve. There's a transfer where we may take over the customer's operation, either on site or bring it into our super center where we're taking over that traditional mail processing. And there's an opportunity for us to focus on, from an ROI standpoint, to focus on sorting automation and maybe efficiency through the scale of our operation. And then we look at the transform, this is where we're focusing on that rapid scanning, early scanning, where we're transforming processes to scan paper and to be able to facilitate that image to replace the paper and to be able to be delivered to the appropriate person, as well as potentially plugging in that omni-channel where we can have fax and email and other digital content that's coming into the organization handled in one stream, right? One digital mailroom process. And then at the acceleration stage, the focus is really looking back at what we've been able to digitize, and through automation, being able to extract that data, classify the data. When I say classify, I mean know what the document is that I'm looking at, and be able to route that successfully to a person, to a process, to a system, wherever it needs to go. So this is the login page for Insight. And Insight resides, it's cloud-based, but it's platform agnostic, which means that it can reside on any cloud platform, most likely Google, AWS, or Azure. It supports single sign-on. So while you can manage individual users and passwords, it'll integrate with your customers' access list. I mean, your organization's access list, and allow seamless log on. Also with Insight, it's user role-based security, and its access. The access is controlled to the objects within Insight based on the metadata of that object. And that sounds very technical as it leaves my mouth, but what we're talking about is the data that exists or is captured for that document. We actually have rules around it. So you can get down to, it's not just limited to this group, this individual, this department, or categories of content. It's down to the actual fields and the values within those fields that you can control access to a document. And a good example of that is when we do Digital Mailroom, and we have some people that can just see the envelope, the front of the envelope, the digital envelope, but they can't see the contents. And so we can control even down to the image level what they have access to. So we're going to pretend that we clicked on the Google link here, and it automatically brought me into Insight. And I'm using some screenshots that I've captured because I wanted to focus on some specific areas, and I didn't want to waste your time with navigation and going through the tool. But this is the user dashboard, and I love this dashboard. It's like one-stop shopping, and it should feel like Outlook or like a Google Mail, where we've anticipated what you want to see and what you want to work on. The bottom right is where your unread mail is. So this is the mail that may have come in this morning, and you can see who it came from and what it's classified as. And you can click on that and open up the mail. Or you can go up to the top left and you can see the mail that you've received, that you've viewed already, but it's right there for you. You can flag or star mail so you can follow up, and that might be in your favorites. Down on the left is mail where you may have opened it and realized this needed to go to someone else in your organization. So you routed it to that person, and it's down here to tell you when it's due, like you've given them a due date. So you track it. And this will also show up the same way in their mailbox. In the top right-hand corner, we customize this widget for our customers so that they could be at the individual level, it could be at the organization level. At this level, it's usually user level, so you can see what the breakouts are of your mail, like how much unopened mail you have, how much mail you have that's tied to a task, and so forth. So this is actually the same screen I showed you for the mail user. The only difference here is the mail admin. So in this particular case, you'll see in the bottom left-hand corner where tasks are, it says unrouted mail. So the admin, so you can assign a person or a group of people that can actually go in and route mail to different people or different parts of the organization. If for some reason, we don't have the routing rules that exist within Insight. And so usually the admin handles the exceptions, and as they have the exceptions, they update the routing so that they're not exceptions anymore, and they automatically get delivered where they need to. Let's talk about how you can interact content in other ways too. If you could go to the next slide, please. So this is kind of the standard content organization tree that you normally see within a viewing mechanism, let's call it a traditional view, where you can drill down into different buckets or categories of content. And what you're seeing here is we've just really given you images of envelopes so that you can kind of see what it would look like. Let's move on to the next tab. What the real power of Insight is, yes, you can deal or work in it like a normal repository, but you can also search for data based on the metadata, that extraction of data and full text that we've retrieved or that we've extracted from that document. And you can have this searching capability across all kinds of different content. In this view, you'll see some objects in the bottom right-hand corner. One's a folder. That's actually, for this example, is a report. It's a digital report produced by a system that contains the criteria that I was searching for. So maybe it was like a loss history on a claim, and my claim number or my policy number is in that report. And the other is a box in the bottom right, which is there's a folder with the claim information that this person's looking for that hasn't been digitized that's in that box. And so we give a single pane of glass to our customers that gives them the ability to search across physical and digital. And then if we move to the next page, once I've identified the information that I want, I can retrieve it. So in the case of the top, here's an envelope that the contents haven't been scanned, and I'm requesting them to be scanned, right? So I'm saying I'm using this functionality below the image to request that the contents be scanned, or I could have the document delivered to my office. In the case of the lower icon, I'm requesting that digital content be delivered to me in Insight. And the box to the right, although I haven't highlighted it, I could request the box, the folder in the box, to be removed and imaged and delivered to me digitally as well. All right, next tab, please. So we just wanted to show you, this is probably the most basic view that you can see within Insight, but I wanted to show you this because it shows the metadata that's captured from the object automatically, the image automatically. And of course, in a document, there's much more significant metadata that shows or tags that appear from the extraction of data, but this is all something that can be leveraged to help you automate processing downstream. Let's go to the next tab, please. And so this is actually if you were to go and click on a piece of mail from your dashboard, this is the actual personal space or personal mailbox that you would have seen. And this is showing me that mail that came in, and it's showing me the rest of my mail on the left now instead of in the widget. And on the right, I'm seeing the metadata that I'm meant to see. And instead of seeing all the metadata captured, I'm seeing the metadata that I might need in order to fulfill my task. I can see comments and collaboration with my coworkers below. And then I can even initiate a workflow, like I said earlier. So in the top right-hand corner, you've got another taskbar, and that kind of connect the dot symbol is to initiate a workflow. So we're going to pretend we're going to click on that and go to the next slide. And then what happens is we start the workflow, and I've chosen a standard workflow where I'm just picking, I'm Joe Smith, and I've picked Jane Doe to review this document. Just a simple request, just putting it in the comments. I put in a date when I'd like it reviewed by, and then I'm starting it. And as I said before, this will show up in the dashboards of both Jane and me with a time, showing the time. It'll show if it's overdue. It'll also send me reminders that the document is in queue. And there's also administrative reporting available so that you can track communications between users.
All right. We did just want to share some examples because really, you know, everyone's a little bit different based on different industries, the different doc types coming in, the different SLAs, you know, the contents of that mail, how they're handling it today. But we did just want to share a couple examples. And again, for us, we really think of the benefits, not just about the mail, but about how it's impacting those downstream processes. So the first is a mortgage provider, one of the top mortgage providers in the US, where we handle all of their incoming post-close reviews. So all of these mortgage documents are coming in via the mail. They're being imaged by us, and we're doing that automated extraction of data, Corinne, that we were talking about. You know, you OCR the documents, you extract the key data fields, you make sure that they have all the documents that they were supposed to have to close the mortgage. You know, were the wet signatures in the right place? Did they include all the trailing documents? And really making sure that they're meeting compliance for this post-closing process. So, you know, everything from basically that movement from the physical world of getting those mortgage documents into that digital world, that's something that we're very proud to handle today. Another one is really in the manufacturing space. And when we talk about routing, this is what we mean. You know, for this instance, we are doing the end-to-end mailroom processing and digital ingestion. We're handling over 6 million pieces of mail per year. But what's really interesting here is we're extracting data and actually integrating it with our customer's ERP solution. So again, taking data from mail and getting it where it needs to go to process that data as quickly as possible. And then lastly, we did want to give an insurance example. This is over 10 million pieces annually. These are highly sensitive pieces of mail, including check processing, which we mentioned. And for this, you know, what was really interesting here was two things. One was the scale of the operations, but also the sensitivity of the mail. So I know we talked earlier, how do you determine the business rules? For some mail is handled a certain way, other mail is handled differently. In this instance, our customer had a category of mail that they deemed sensitive mail, which had to have unique handling requirements and unique recipients of that mail. So we built a custom process for them to make sure that that mail got where it needed to go through our digital platform and was secure and had access controls over who could access it.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention too that all these customers were pre-COVID, and so a lot of the customers we're talking to today they've either got an issue where they're digitizing mail now and it's being delivered in email or some uncontrolled system, and they need to change that content management platform. And they want to get control over the digitization piece because what they put in place was supposed to be temporary, right? Or people couldn't get into the mailroom, and so they're looking at business continuance. It's like, how do we keep the mail flowing? How do we deliver mail to people who are now working remotely at home? These customers, the mortgage close they were facing significant penalties for delays in the processing, significant penalties, like in the millions of dollars. And so they needed to do something and do something fast. Manufacturing, they lost their headquarters location, their lease. They had to move. They weren't planning to move, but they had to move. And they were looking at whether they should need to move the mailroom or not, and if there was an opportunity. So they took the opportunity for that physical change in the space or the location change to be able to move that processing out of house. And the last one was really based, it was kind of it wasn't COVID to start with, but for them, they did have their mailroom closed for 2 full weeks because of COVID. They were unable to process their mail. And for a company that's processing this much volume, it was about business continuance. Thanks, folks. Have a good rest of your day.